So Fire Force once again returns with another great episode of this wonderful series. Now, this is interesting, especially as we start seeing more and more of the squadrons that are a part of the so-called Fire Force, and how different it is, and really leads on to the conspiracy that maybe the squadron that our main character Shinra is a part of might be the only one we should really put any hope into, because it's not looking good from what we've seen up to this point. First things first, I do want to make a quick mention. I am adoring the background art to Fire Force. I think I mentioned it during the episode 1 review, but I have to say just the overall detail in the way they color in and just overall stylize the details to the buildings and just everything that's in the background. This city looks gorgeous and it just feels so unique from every anime that I've seen in quite some time. The background art, when it needs to, is really popping and feeling like it's a living and breathing city, which really adds to the immersion of really wanting to protect it from the infernals and just other nasties and baddies that are trying to ruin the way of life of people. This episode, though, we get introduced to one of the captains of a different squadron, and I'm just curious if part of like your resume when you're applying to be a part of her squad, is there like a little check mark you have to check to say, are you okay with being a throne or being walked all over? Because that's what this dominatrix was doing. She made a throne of men and literally was walking all over people as carpet. I'm generally curious if when they get hired, you have to pass the test of, are you okay being degraded? Because holy shit, this girl is something else. We've seen this type of character in anime before, but there's something about her being a captain of a so-called fire force that makes it both hilarious and a little disturbing that someone like that could run a squadron, and it just kind of further theorizes that maybe there isn't too much good nature going on within this squadron, at least past, our captain that we have been following. But it's interesting though, because as of what we've seen up to this point, it seemed like infernals, they would just spontaneously combust and, it'd be a person, it'd be a very sad thing. In this episode, it's actually completely different. This seemingly is the first infernal who has kept who he was. There's been cases where there's been similarities and little bits of humanity left in them, but this is a murderer, someone who's going to get off scot-free because, he was a firefighter, he saved so many lives. And like with the real world, depending on your social status, you can get out of most crimes with enough money and influence. And that's what exactly happened. But when he spontaneously combusted, it seemed like he was identical. The same person, except now more dangerous because he was an infernal. And that's an interesting concept. This is something that you would typically expect to see with most shonens that would have something like this. But up to this point, it's all been very human and very emotionally gripping. The people that we've been fighting were kind of trying to allow the infernals to do things or trying to recruit people, but actually have an infernal be so self-aware and just say such vile things. Do you know how many people I saved as a firefighter? What does it matter if I kill a few people now? I've still saved more lives than I'm taking. That's the type of mentality that a human had and now has as a infernal. And the fact that he was trying to bargain his way out of a situation, being like, you're not murderers, I already passed my trial, if I was put on trial again, I'd still get off scot-free. This is such a sick and twisted mentality, and I thought it was interesting how Shinra had to deal with this, and I was actually expecting him to maybe say he didn't want to do it, because up to this point, they were attacking what could be viewed as dead and was just a family member who need to be laid to rest. But this is someone who's talking with them, someone who truly feels like they are 100% a person, just a vile person at the end of the day. So I was happy to see that they did stick to their guns. They shot him in the face at one point, and we did have Shinra say, like, you have to be put down, you're vile, you're evil, and he gave him the benefit of the doubt near the end, being like, okay, I'll wait for the sisters to get here so you can have your prayer, but he wasn't an idiot and did counterattack when need to. He wasn't super cliche, being surprised that it happened. He probably expected it and was on his guard, and I think that's what's so interesting about the combat in this week's episode, is it really brought up the question of, when there's so few people within this organization that we trust, and people are taking them back to study, which sure, studying an infernal that can talk like a human and seemingly is still a human, that's important, but when you see the type of person doing the research, you honestly feel like they'll just set them back on the market once they got the results, or something more sick and twisted or sinister could occur. And that's what I really like about Fire Force, is even though it's surrounded by a lot of tropey and gimmicky aspects like, the whole dominatrix and just certain aspects with how characters and just the perviness is perceived by us, the viewers, a majority of what the episodes are built off of in the story, there's so much going on underneath the hood that if you strip it down, take away the animation, take away just the fun aspects to it, there's actually a really complex story being told here, and we don't know exactly where it wants to go. Easily a majority of the Fire Force could be good people, just maybe with some questionable intentions here or there, or a majority could be 100% evil and we can only trust the organization that we're currently a part of with Shinra. But there's so many ways they could go about exploring the idea of the infernals, how they do spontaneously combust. Do they have a cure already but don't want to give it to the public because then they would just be normal firefighters? There's a lot to really dive into the overall politics to what's going on with the Fire Force and why there is so much tension and seemingly so much corruption. Just obviously this is us assuming because it just seems like a lot of shady things are going on. They easily could be fine and the captain of Shinra Squad could be the most shady one. We don't truly know where it wants to go, but there's enough lingering questions that makes Fire Force each episode, even when we're having fun or even when we're just like, okay, it's shown in action, we're fighting a fire beast, it still feels like there's actually a sinister plot at play. We got characters outside of the Fire Force who seemingly are up to no good, using the burned ashes of infernals to not even let the people rest in peace, but using it as weapons. And then we also have characters within the squadron being like, can we trust him? And that's what's super interesting about Fire Force right now. Though I will say, this episode had a couple of probably the funniest lines within Fire Force. I'm really digging Arthur just for his comedy. When he answers the phone, he acts like such a douchebag when he answers the phone, calling himself a knight and just lord, and holy shit, that line and just the smack he received was so well deserved, but I'm so happy he did it, and I hope he keeps up those antics. Or just how he was literally riding Shinra like a horse, galloping to his destination. I don't know why it cracks me up so much, but there's something about the dynamic between Shinra and Arthur that just leaves me smiling, leaves me putting my head in my hand being like, these guys are so clueless and dense sometimes, but you enjoy the pairing. It's this rivalry that's really interesting because they're a part of the same squadron. They are pretty much competing with one another, but they obviously have this weird form of friendship that is just so humorous and interesting, but when it counts, they're obviously going to have each other's back and make sure they don't die and they'll come out of a mission alive. But I thought it was really fun. This episode just had an interesting style to it because the overall story and characters was an interesting style. The flames and just the way the Infernal looked, it didn't feel similar to the past episodes, and I think that's a good thing, because it felt like this was such a different beast that we were fighting, something that was communicating with us, really feeling like he was the same person, but now could just destroy a city with, a snap of his fingers. So I thought it was fitting that the visuals just felt like we were in a different world at some points. It just felt like what we were looking at, what we were seeing with the flames, it felt so different, and that's why it became a test subject at the end of the episode. And just to see Shinra not just back down, lick the girl's foot when she says so, and actually fight back, I do have respect for him there, because it would have been very easy for them to just put Shinra in a situation where he had to kiss ass and basically take the L, and that's what would have happened. But to actually have Shinra try to stand up against someone who obviously had the upper hand and had the support to take him out, I thought was respectable, because it wasn't like this cliche hot-headed moment. She was simply being a bitch to him, and he wanted to stand his ground because what he was seeing was, you're going against what we're supposed to do, we have to take out the evil, and literally you're not my boss, so why would I listen to you? There was some hot-headedness to it, but at the end of the day, what he was saying, you kind of supported and were like, yeah, kick this girl's ass if you want. And to just see that conversation at the end between the captains and obviously the squad's trying to take a shit on our captain, and just seeing the whole, punching in the gut, it just felt like these squadrons, the other organizations that are a part of the Fire Force, the different crews, they obviously are going to be complex. They're probably going to rub us the wrong way. Some we might enjoy, some we might absolutely hate their personalities. And this one did a lot that really rubbed me the wrong way, but I'm glad they're a part of the show because they really add an extra spice to the mix that is the stew that we are consuming week by week, and it allows for us to always be like, what is everyone's true intentions? Are they just bad people? Are they just, not knowing how to be functioning adults? Or are they doing something sinister? It's really fun, and I'm really just enjoying piecing together like what's going on. I have so many ideas and theories of where the show could go, and as I'm watching fun fire animation occur and just watching these ridiculous personalities and comedy scenes take place, I'm also thinking about the grand picture where Fire Force wants to go over its run, and that's really exciting. When you can do that, have that lingering story that you kind of have an idea where it wants to go, but at the same time you completely don't know, that allows this series to be week after week incredibly engaging, both on the story at hand, but also the lingering main story that we'll obviously learn more about as time goes on. Fire Force definitely feels like what you would expect a shonen battle series to feel like. It has all the elements, but honestly, even the stuff I typically don't like, there's obviously a lot of sexual fan service within the show. Shinra looks up a lot of skirts, more so than you would expect within, 3 or 4 episodes, but it just has a way of somehow blending serious and complete ridiculous in a way that even the stuff I generally don't enjoy about anime that is present within this, especially with some of the tropey just gimmicks that it does use, I don't find myself lingering on those aspects. I really just find myself focusing on the aspects I enjoy, like the world, the characters, when they are serious and not being the tropes that I despise, and just seeing how it can blend both a comfy and fun atmosphere with also one of the more serious battle shonens I've seen in quite some time, as because people are literally just being set on fire randomly, we don't know what's happening, and we've seen the pain in the people's faces, but I think it understands when it has to be serious and not let characters goof off, and when it is okay to do so. And I think that's incredibly important for a show like Fire Force, which easily could have characters like Shinra looking up a skirt in the middle of trying to take out an infernal as people are crying on the outside, but rather they don't do that. When they do goof off and be a little more tropey, it feels like they do apply at the appropriate moment, so I'm not left feeling like even the stuff I'm not maybe a huge fan of, it's not a big issue for me. And for the people who do enjoy it, they're obviously going to have a heyday with it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't take away from my enjoyment, which I really appreciate, because it would be very easy for Fire Force to do things and make me feel like you're ruining your potential, but no, I actually feel like it's actually at its potential and just keeps slowly but surely rising its bar of where the story could go. Obviously, it's all about the execution of the main story, but I have high hopes for it nonetheless, so yeah, I'm pretty excited for more at this point in time. I thought this was an incredibly fun episode. The comedy was definitely on point, and just the personalities were something else. I'm pretty excited to see where they're going to go overall, but let me know what everyone thought of this week's episode of Fire Force. Love it, hate it, favorite moment? What do you think of some of the new and questionable characters of the cast? Let me know. And be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.